Good morning once again. I'm Murugi Chizenyawera, still a lecturer for this unit, African Ogre Narratives. And we are now tackling topic 2, which is types of African Ogre Narratives. By the end of this lesson or topic, I expect each and every one of you to be able to capture the following. I would like each and every one of you to be able to identify and define the 5 types of oral narratives. Or rather, in this topic, we will discuss 3 types of oral narratives. That is the Ogre Narratives, Trickster Narratives, and the Fables. So you have to be able to describe features of each type, provide at least one example of each of the African tradition, and examine the purpose or lesson behind the sample narrative. So by the end of this topic, I need you to be able to define each and every Ogre narratives that we're going to discuss, not the Ogre narratives, rather the oral narratives. And also be able to know their features. And if you were given an example of a narrative, would you identify it as an Ogre narrative, a trickster narrative, or a fable narrative? So we will continue. Our first narrative will be Ogre narratives. Ogre narratives. I gave a brief example or a brief definition of in our last topic. So the ogre narratives is a type of oral literature that feature an ogre or monstrous being as the antagonist of the story. These stories tend to caution or warn children or people against dangers, such as making careless decisions or trusting strangers. So in simpler terms, ogre narratives they involve ogres or monstrous beings, and they tend to teach the kids, or rather the children will want them, on dangerous decisions or believing strangers. So the features will go on to the features. And the antagonist of the story, this means that this is the main character in the story. And the protagonist learns a lesson, that is the human being character. So we will move to the features of Ogre narratives. Our first feature is has the presence of an ogre or the monstrous being, as I said, that is the main character in the story. And then the second feature is has conflict between the ogre and the human. Yes, a conflict is created between the monstrous being and the human being, where the human being faces challenges or rather faces dangers. That is, the dangers are caused by the ogre or rather the monstrous being. The next feature is has a moral lesson. So at the end of that ogre narrative, the child or whoever is reading, the reader, will be able to learn a lesson. The next is has supernatural elements. Ogres may possess magical powers or extraordinary abilities. And our last feature is always has a happy ending. The ogre is usually defeated, or rather leading to a satisfying resolution. So the ogre narrative is meant to teach the reader something. So if the ogre poses danger to the human being will be able to avoid it or rather defeat the ogre. But the human being who has faced the danger, it was caused by maybe not listening or ignoring the rules of the society. So this will be able to teach the reader that it's not good to disobey or rather do things your own way without involving others. So the importance of the ogre narratives we have, they teach moral values such as bravery, wisdom, and caution, often warning against trusting strangers and making careless decisions, as I have explained. These stories help pass down traditions, beliefs, and customs from one generation to another, hence preserving the culture. Definitely, it's an ogre narrative. The main purpose of the oral narrative is to preserve culture, educate, entertain. Education is part of teaching the moral lesson. They also entertain by captivating audiences with suspenseful and thrilling plots, making the story engaging. The The next feature of the Ogre Narratives, they highlight societal issues such as greed, deception through symbolic representations, creating social awareness in the society. They also encourage critical thinking and creativity, especially among young listeners, hence promoting education. Through shared storytelling experiences, the social connections and fostering of a sense of belonging is strengthened. So if you click on this link that I've provided over here, it will lead you to an example of a narrative. So on your free time, you kindly click on that link, you'll be able to read this story. And after reading this story, you'll be able to understand what I'm saying about the features, the importance of the Ogre narratives, and how Ogre narratives are structured. So we will move to our next narrative, which are the Trickster Narratives. Trickster Narratives tell stories about the main character, often an animal, who is clever, mischievous, and loves to play pranks. These stories exist in many cultures and show the trickster's wit, humor, and ability to upset the usual order. Tricksters can be both creators and fools, showing contradiction in their personalities and actions. So trickster narrative is, for example, hare and hyena, where the hare tricks the hyena and the hare ends up benefiting, while the hyena is taken to be a fool. So the characteristics of trickster narratives are how they are mischievous and clever. Tricksters are known for their cunning and their skills at outsmarting others. The next is ambiguous and contradictory. They can be both creative and destructive, wise and foolish, embodying a mix of conflicting traits. Often animalistic, many trickster figures appear as animals with human-like traits, such as Coyote, Raven, and Anansi, the spider. The next characteristic we have disruptive and regressive. Tricksters challenge social norms and expectations, often mixing the sacred with the ordinary. We have found in various cultures, trickster figures show up in the folklore of many cultures around the world, each with its own unique versions. So we will now look at the functions of trickster narratives. They are for entertainment, as I said, or African narratives are meant for entertainment, education, preservation of culture, and benefiting the community or rather social awareness. They are for entertainment and humor because they are often shared for fun and can bring laughter and joy. They can provide social commentary by pointing out flaws in the society that is social awareness. Trickster stories often offer indirect moral lessons by showing the outcomes of certain actions and behaviors. Trickster tales help preserve and share cultural knowledge, beliefs, and values from one generation to another. That is preservation of culture. And lastly, they allow us to explore the complexities of human nature, including our ability to be good and evil. And here I've attached a link that will also lead you to an example of a trickster narrative. This is here the trickster. It's a very short trickster narrative. By reading it, you'll be able to get exposed to how trickster narratives are, or rather their features and importance. Will you be able to understand them much more easily by reading this example of the trickster narrative? As you can see, it's a very short story. It only has the 16 pages. And now we will move to our last horror narrative, fables. Which are fables? Fables are short fictional stories that often feature animals. The main characters of fables are always animals. They teach moral lessons or present as useful principle of life. Fables usually give human-like qualities to non-human characters to get their message across. and the moral lesson is often stated at the end. So the characteristics of fables, they are short and concise. So they are typically brief and focus on a single clear message. They have a moral lesson. The main purpose of a fable is to teach a moral, which is a rule for living. They have anthropomorphism. Fables often include animals, objects, or elements from nature with human traits. This allows for relatable storytelling and exploration of human issues. That is, they use personification in a much bigger setting where they give the animals characters of human beings. Use of simple languages. Fables generally use clear language that is easy for their target audience, often children, to understand. So the functions of fables, we have fables teach right from wrong and offer guidance on how to behave. Fables help children understand concepts like truth, goodness, and empathy. They show characters who embody positive traits and face consequences for negative ones. Fables reflect and strengthen the values and norms of a culture. They shape society's understanding of acceptable behavior. The lessons in fables are often universal, making them relatable to many people and applicable to various situations. So, a fable from a community that is not yours would benefit you since they're universal. They do not specify or specialize in one community. The next function we have fables are enjoyable stories that include humor and engaging narratives while conveying morals. And lastly, some fables, especially those with anthropomorphic animal characters, can offer social commentary by subtly criticizing human behavior or societal structures. So that is social awareness. And I've also provided a link for this narrative too. If you open this link, it will lead you to this fable, which involves the lion and the mouse. Yeah, so if you click on the orange mouse, you'll be able to begin and see it. Rather, not only reading it, you can also be able to visualize it. They have illustrated what is going on. So you have this one, a lion, the lion and the mouse, and also there are many others. So you can read, as you can see here is a moral lesson, a kindness is never wasted. So as you can see, there are many. There we have the Gantt and the ball. So there are several. If you open the link, it will lead you to the many fables that have been attached in that link. So kindly make sure that you do that to be able to understand fables much more better. The end, as always, at the end of our topic, we have a quiz activity. You'll answer these questions after the class. That is, define Ogre Narratives, Trickster Narratives and Fables. Using the Trickster Narrative provided, the example, the link that I provided, if you click on the link and read the Trickster Narrative that I've provided, I need you to highlight the characteristics of Trickster Narratives. The characteristics of Trickster Narratives that are present in that example, I've already read it and I know there are 2 or 3. Also, discuss 4 impacts of fables. And then lastly, differentiate between Trickster Narratives and the Ogre Narratives. And I'll be checking that work in our next class. So make sure to do that and open the links and read those stories. They'll help you understand the Ogre Narratives, the Trickster Narratives, and the fables much more better. So that will be the end of our lesson. Let's meet in our next class to discuss the topic 3, that is the types of oral narratives. We'll be discussing the legends, myths, folktale narratives, and legends, myths, and the folktale narratives. Yeah. So let's meet in our next class. Have a nice day.